Greetings YouTube. Today let's talk about the term pagan. Pagan and heathen. Pagan, disambiguation, and heathen, disambiguation. Paganism, from Latin paganus, meaning country dweller. Rustic is the blanket term given to describe religions and spiritual practices of pre-Christian Europe, and by extension a term for polytheistic traditions or folk religion worldwide seen from a Western or Christian viewpoint. The term has various different meanings, though, from a Western perspective, it has modern connotations of a faith that has polytheistic, spiritualist, animistic or shamanic practices, such as a folk religion, historical polytheistic or neopagan religion. The term has been defined broadly, to encompass all of the religions outside the Abrahamic monotheistic group of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The group so defined includes most of the Eastern religions, Native American religions and mythologies, as well as non-Abrahamic folk religions in general. More narrow definitions will not include any of the world religions, and restrict the term to local or rural currents not organized as civil religions. Characteristic of pagan traditions is the absence of proselytism and the presence of a living mythology which explains religious practice. The term pagan is a Christian adaptation of the Gentile of Judaism, and as such has an inherent Abrahamic bias, and pejorative connotations among Western monotheists, comparable to heathen, and infidel, also known as kafir and mushrik in Islam. For this reason, ethnologists avoid the term paganism, with its uncertain and varied meanings, in referring to traditional or historic faiths, preferring more precise categories such as polytheism, shamanism, pantheism, or animism. However, others, who criticize the use of these terms, claiming that these are only aspects that different faiths may share, and do not denote the religions themselves. Since the later 20th century, pagan, or paganism has become widely used as a self-designation by adherents of neopaganism. As such, various modern scholars have begun to apply the term to three separate groups of faiths: historical polytheism, such as Celtic polytheism and Norse paganism; folk/ethnic/indigenous religions, such as Chinese folk religion and African traditional religion; and neopaganism, such as Wicca and Germanic neopaganism. The term pagan is from the Latin paganus, an adjective originally meaning rural, rustic or of the country. As a noun, paganus was used to mean country dweller, villager. The semantic development of post-classical Latin paganus in the sense non-Christian, heathen is unclear. The dating of this sense is controversial, but the 4th century seems most plausible. An earlier example has been suggested in Tertullian de Corona Militis Xi, apud hunc sc. Christum tam miles est paganus fidelis quam paganus est miles infidelis, but here the word paganus may be interpreted in the sense civilian rather than heathen. There are three main explanations of the development. The older sense of classical Latin mus is of the country, rustic also as noun. It has been argued that the transferred use reflects the fact that the ancient idolatry lingered on in the rural villages and hamlets after Christianity had been generally accepted in the towns and cities of the Roman Empire. Cf. Orosius Histories 1. Prol. Ex licorum agrestium compitus et pages pagani vocantur. From its earliest beginnings, Christianity spread much more quickly in major urban areas, like Antioch, Alexandria, Corinth, Rome, than in the countryside. In fact, the early church was almost entirely urban, and soon the word for country dweller became synonymous with someone who was not a Christian, giving rise to the modern meaning of pagan. This may, in part, have had to do with the closeness to nature of rural people, who may have been more resistant to the new ideas of Christianity than those who lived in major urban centers, and were cut off from the cycles of nature and the forms of spirituality associated with them. However, it may have also resulted from early Christian missionaries focusing their efforts within major population centers, for example, St. Paul, rather than throughout an expansive, yet sparsely populated, countryside, hence, the Latin term suggesting an educated country folk until a bit later on. There are also misinterpretations of pagan being the same as Satanist, or one being satanic. It is not, however. Pagans and Satanists are very different, though some similarities may be. This does not make them the same. II, the more common meaning of classical Latin mus is civilian, non-militant adjective and noun. Christians called themselves milites, enrolled soldiers of Christ, members of his militant church, and applied to non-Christians the term applied by soldiers to all who were not enrolled in the army *II. The sense then arose from an interpretation of paganus as denoting a person who was outside a particular group or community, hence not of the city or rural, cf. Orosius Histories 1. Prowl. Ui alienea sibinet Dei, Pagani vocanter. Oxford English Dictionary Online, 2nd edition, 1989. The post-classical Latin paganismus gave rise to both paganism, and to its synonym paenimry. Paenimry may be used of paganism, its practices, and pagans, as well as for the domain or realm of pagans. Peasant is a cognate, via Old French peasant. In their distant origins, these usages derive from pagus, province, countryside, cognate to Greek rocky hill, and, even earlier, something stuck in the ground, as a landmark. The Proto-Indo-European root *pag means fixed, and is also the source of the words page, pale, stake, and pole, as well as pact and peace.